Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. Atul Patel, CEO and co-founder of Orbee. I'm here with Cody Jones from Kenwood Auto Group, and we're at the Kain 2024 conference, and I met you for the first time last night.
Yes.
And we started having some really cool conversations about integration, so I'd love for you to introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about what you do, and then we're gonna kind of wrap about some ideas.
Okay, yeah. I've been with the Kenwood Dealer Group 15 years. I've held almost every single role on the sales side of things, ran one of our stores for a few years. Yeah, what we were talking about yesterday is all of the different avenues or applications my team has to use to be successful.
Right.
You have a million logins, just to get their job done or to be the best, they have to look in a bunch of places.
Looking at all those places, needing to go to all these places is part of the problem for them. It's almost like we blame them for customer experience, and then we don't help them with the fact that they have to do so much to do it right.
I think that if they had more data to act on, or knew how they had systems that would
compile it all
Put
together.
it all together so that they knew how to best use their time. It's really just being efficient.
Yeah.
Not wasted time in the dealership.
So it almost seems like, okay, so there was an era of like reporting aggregation where it's like, okay, I'll give you a single view of aggregate numbers. You had 500 here, 200 here, but now it needs to go to individual level. I got a call or I have someone in the service lane. I need to be able to pull it up and not just scroll through a bunch of notes in the CRM, but kind of get tips on how I should engage this user, whether it's the web activity, the chat activity, etc. So is that kind of...
Yeah, it's like having a DR tool that we know customers are interacting with. So like on our website, that they're, if that person also is due into the service department.
Yes.
And, or like we've sold them multiple cars over a few generations. Like we know, like after so many service visits or so many miles, this person becomes a higher, likelihood to
like
buy.
A loyal customer.
Well, this is just the time this person normally starts looking. And then, they did this one trigger over here. And so there's right now a lot of manual stuff we have to do to figure out, like, hey, go talk to this person in service drive. This is the situation. It's not using, I guess, all the data to say, here's your, and Mastermind does a decent job. Like they'll give us some scoring behaviors.
Yes.
And so like, how do I get the scoring behavior to also be in the CRM system? Because I want my salespeople in the CRM system. I want everything in my CRM system.
Yes.
I really want my advisors that are helping the customers in the CRM system. I want everyone working off one big profile on this customer, so it's a more personal experience, that we can find, the sticking points, create more wow moments.
So it sounds like, okay, so stage one is getting all that data together. So you have a DR tool, you have a lot of web activity, you have what's happening in the CRM, you have obviously transactional data in the DMS. There's probably a bunch of other tools like trade-in and so forth. So pulling all that together into a single stream of activity per consumer. And sometimes you know who the consumer is, sometimes it's anonymous, and when they are found or discovered, you kind of link it all together, right? Yeah. And so that's step number one, and even that is sort of, you're still in the early days of saying, hey, how could I pull all of these sort of events, we call them, into a single view, right? And that's kind of what we talked about last night, is that could be incredible. And then what you're kind of describing is, how do you actually kind of glean insights out of this? Like, what are some key triggers that could automate, whether it's advertising or outreach or a phone call. And then the third is like modeling, almost like modeling who's an ideal customer, when do they become loyal, when do you have them for life? And what were those steps that led to that? Was it the amount of cars they bought? Was it they bought a car and did service, and they stayed on track of their sort of, their factory scheduled services? It's almost like having all that data together, finding the insights, and then modeling it then leads to a whole new set of opportunities.
No, it can make a more tooled salesperson, a salesperson that is not just, you know, the up person.
Well, let's talk about that, because you told me you were in sales. Like, so you've gone from actually being way in the front line to now trying to kind of do a sort of bird's eye view. So that kind of tell me what it was like back then when you were doing that.
I was in sales. It was it was joked around. It was called the Cody push at the end of the month, and it was we were using Autobase, which I don't even know if they still exist, as a CRM system. And like I would have to pretty much make my own templates up, and I'm pushing stuff out
To the consumer.
To the consumer.
Yeah.
Versus like being able to use technology, know who's actually truly still in market. I would, until buy or die mentality, like until the customer, I see their name in the obituaries or they told me that they bought a car, I kept following up with them.
Yeah.
A bunch of wasted time, you know, sending out, like I used to send out little, you know, quotes of the month to customers to like keep a brand going. You know, so like.
So it almost feels like if you were doing this back then, why can't it be done better and faster and now?
Yeah.
And so I love that. I love that you have this history having done it, and then. But you know, I think where, especially the theme at this event is about integrations, and I feel like that's been the kind of the impediment to doing a lot of this. Because back then it was like simple; it was all in one system. There weren't dozens of systems, and so I guess integrations and that seamlessness hasn't kept up to how many places people need to go, and that's kind of our premise. Is you have so many different ways that the consumer can interact with the dealer. We announced something with Car Wars and some other call tracking companies. The call or the voice data itself is just ripe for the taking, right? But on its own, it's just aggregate numbers. Like, hey, we had this many calls and they were this happy. But when you combine it to the rest of the journey, you're like, wait, the second a consumer looks at a few cars and then calls in and then comes in and does a test drive and then does some trade-in estimates, this is now a signal or a combination of signals that lock them in. Now, it doesn't matter if you hound them or if you give a more VIP treatment. It's almost like you're going to have them anyway, so don't mess it up by doing it the wrong way.
Actually, I mean, people visit less stores nowadays, and I always tell my salespeople, it's like your job is not to mess it up. They've done enough online to walk through the door. Like they're pretty low hanging fruit.
Wow.
So,
yeah. So, well, that's kind of what our conversation was last night. I figured I'd have you here and we just kind of chat, because normally we're talking to vendors on these podcasts, but now we're starting to use this as a way to just kind of hear what dealers have to say and what's top of mind for you guys. So, thanks for joining me.
Cool.
All right. Cool. Okay. Awesome. Thanks.